Ms. Rowena Santos, and I am the Regional Councillor for Wards 1 and 5, and also a very proud Vice Chair of our Economic Development Committee at the City of Brampton. First and foremost, thank you to all the businesses and the participants who are joining us this morning. And as always, before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that we are gathering here today on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and before them, the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Huron, and Wendat. We also acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other global Indigenous people who now call Brampton their home. We are honored to live, work on, and enjoy this land. Thank you again to everybody who is here bringing your ideas and questions to our budget session today, specifically for our business community. This is an annual event where we seek feedback from the business community on the city's budget. Your input is vitally important, and on behalf of myself, my council colleagues, Mayor Brown, who is here today, and Councillor Toor, our Chair of Economic Development, we truly appreciate you taking the time to join us. And a very quick shout out to the folks who put together the budget on the team, as well as our incredible economic development staff. I will now pass it over to Councillor Toor, our Chair of Economic Development, to continue. Over to you, Councillor Toor.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Good morning, everyone that's joining us today. My name is Gurpartap Toor. I'm the Regional Councillor for Wards 9 and 10, also the Chair for Economic Development. The City of Brampton's Economic Development team, all of which are here in person with us today or online, plays a very vital role in fostering local economic growth by attracting inward investment to drive job creation and enhance our community's prosperity. With a dedicated team of sector managers, an investment services team, a site selection team, and the Brampton Entrepreneur Center, the Brampton Economic Development Office provides comprehensive support to businesses of all sizes, helping them thrive and contribute to the city's economic success. We have many small businesses and entrepreneurs joining us on the call today. I want you to know that the City of Brampton is proud to support small businesses through our Brampton Entrepreneur Center. The city recognizes the vital contributions of entrepreneurs fueling our local economy. 90% of Brampton businesses are classified as small businesses, and the city is committed to providing them with the tools and resources to succeed. I have good news. As of October last year, BEC is now open Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. to provide even more opportunities for entrepreneurs to access resources, guidance, co-working, and support. This was part of last year's budget. So if you haven't been there, I encourage you to visit and talk to the staff and the team that are there. We gather today at a crucial time. There are significant challenges businesses are facing right now, including the possibility of a change to tariffs that could hamper trade. I am pleased to say, however, that as a result of concerted outreach and marketing efforts, the City of Brampton continues to attract investment from leading companies around the world. On these two upcoming slides, you can see some of the recent accomplishments. These are all notable wins, but I'd like to highlight two of them. Handy Foods is a food manufacturer with over 160 varieties of pita chips and has a 90% market share in North America for private labels. It has created 150 jobs this past year. Stellantis Mopar created 250 jobs this past year, and its Brampton assembly plant will be the lead North American plant for manufacturing the next generation Jeep Compass. Congratulations to these companies as well. Cube Building Systems, HelloFresh, Azelis with their Canadian headquarters, Wilson Tools, Albea. Meanwhile, Brampton is driving growth in its innovation and technology sector by putting the necessary building blocks in place for a world-class innovation district. The Brampton Innovation District provides support for entrepreneurs and new businesses owners through every stage of their journey, from education, training, and reskilling to support for companies of all sizes and across all sectors. This slide illustrates the strong partnerships we have. For example, the Rogers Cybersecure Catalyst headquarters helps companies seize the opportunities and tackle the challenges of cybersecurity through collaboration with industry, governments, and academic partners. The Altitude Accelerator is a specialized business incubation and accelerator space that helps startups take their businesses to the next level. In 2023, Altitude launched the Brampton Angel Network, a member-only not-for-profit organization of accredited investors. The Brampton Venture Zone is a startup pre-seed incubator led by the Toronto Metropolitan University. BVZ is launching a new cohort in women's health, which will align with the opening of the new TMU Medical School later this year. I hope you have seen how diverse, connected, and talented Brampton is. With so many new expansions and business developments happening in our city, there are a significant amount of investment opportunities for our economy, and we will continue to drive new investment and job growth in our city. Before I pass it on to Mayor Patrick Brown, I would also like to acknowledge my fellow colleagues that are here today with us, Regional Councillor Paul Vicente, who is also the co-chair of the Budget Committee. And you've heard from Vice Chair of Economic Development, Regional Councillor Santos. And with that, it is now my honor to call upon Mayor Patrick Brown.
Well, thank you, Councillor Singh, and for everyone that logged on to our Business Roundtable today, and of course our Economic Development Director, Denise McClure. We've been having budget consultations around the city, but we always include one with the business community. You are our job creators, you are the economic engine in our city, and we want to make sure that your concerns are heard. Under the new provincial framework, budgets happen pretty quickly. 2 years ago, the province brought in legislation called Strong Mayor Powers that have the mayor shepherd the budget process. And once it's presented, there's a 30-day window where it's presented to council for amendments or is deemed passed. And so we wanted to make sure as soon as the budget was presented, we gave you an opportunity to look at it and get briefed on it. We didn't want this to be given to you before the 30-day period expired. So that's why we're seeing you so quickly to make sure that this wasn't ceremonial, but in fact you had a chance to really look at it and provide feedback. A few things I wanted to mention. One, I know this is a difficult year. There is inflation that is really putting a pressure on businesses. High interest rates in the last few years have wreaked havoc. And now with the pending Trump tariffs, our businesses are under a financial attack. And we want to do whatever we can to support our businesses in Brampton to continue to grow. Brampton has been a Canadian success story in the amount of businesses and jobs created. You hear federal ministers flaunting Brampton examples like MDA or Pet Value or Lululemon. And so I'm concerned. I'm concerned with what we're seeing south of the border, particularly what it means to any business that exports to the U.S. And I know there are thousands of jobs in Brampton associated with businesses that are focused on exports. And so today we want to hear from you. We want to give you a full briefing on our budget. Mark Medeiros, our Chief Budget Officer, is going to give a high-level overview. And then, of course, if there are specific questions about our economic development team and how they can support you, we're keen to hear you. Now, I had a friend in the community who told me once, you want to be a good mayor, remember that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen more than you talk. And so I'll have more to say at the end of this call based on the feedback we're getting. But I know one of the burdens that exists in a city is the tax rate on businesses and red tape. And I think we've made tremendous progress in cutting red tape. We've gone from one of the slowest approvals in the GTA to one of the fastest according to the build study in terms of permit approvals. On property taxes, 6 years ago, we had among the highest in the GTA, and now we're the second lowest in terms of the average levy. Only Milton is ahead of us, and that's because in the last 6 years, we've had an average increase of 1.2%, which is the lowest out of every big city in Canada. This year is a challenging year. You know, there are pressures with the police budget at a regional level. Locally, we have a collective agreement that was 3%, and we have our hospital levy, which is 1%. We really had to make we had to find efficiencies to get it down to 2.9. It's been a very challenging year, but I think we have a budget that balances the need to limit the weight on businesses while at the same time making important strategic investments. So I look forward to all of your feedback and looking forward to the conversation today. Thank you, Councillor Toor, for chairing the discussion today. And of course, wonderful to have Councillor Santos here as part of the event, and Councillor Basante, who is the vice chair of our budget process.
Okay, thank you, Mary Brown. So it's my pleasure to present an overview of the budget today to the business community. Is this coming through?
Yes, Mark, we can see the slide on the screen. And for those who don't know, I was probably meant to introduce Mark Medeiros. Mark Medeiros is the Chief Budget Officer of the city, and he'll be doing the presentation, and he's joined by our Treasurer, Nash Damer, as well.
Thank you, Mary. Sorry, a little technical difficulty. So as the mayor mentioned, affordability has been the primary lens for the city for several years. For about 6 years now, our average tax increase has been 1.2%, which is far lower than any other municipality, especially those with a transit system or as large as the city of Brampton. As you can see here, our per capita property tax is among the lowest, and this year's budget at 2.9% is also among the lowest. It's quite an effort to be able to come in at these levels of tax increases, given the inflationary environment and the economic situation. We've spent a tremendous amount of time going line by line through every single operating account, through every single capital project to make sure that every dollar that's included in this budget is absolutely needed and can be delivered upon. Some of the highlights of this budget is we're completing our commitment to TMU with a $20 million contribution. There's the second hospital where this budget includes another $4.9 million contribution. We currently have $81.1 million in reserve, so we're well on our way of funding our local share. There's 52,000 new service hours in transit. This budget also includes funding for the $300 million transit facility. We're also investing a significant amount of money in capital community building. We're revitalizing rec centers, new outdoor ice rinks, cricket dome, etc. So the proposed 2025 capital budget is combined at $1.4 billion. As you can see, being the 9th largest city in Canada and the 4th largest in Ontario, these are substantial responsibilities. The operating budget of $1 billion, 70% of that is allocated to transit at $246 million, community services, including fire, at $240 million, public works at $105 million, and contributions to reserves at $147 million. So those four categories are really the primary funding of the operating budget. On the capital side, as I mentioned, $368 million, quite a bit of investment in community living, in parks, transit, downtown revitalization, and Riverwalk, recreation center, and roads. We'll get into some more details later on. So as per the Municipal Act, municipalities are required to present a balanced budget. On this slide, you can see we have our $1 billion of expenditures broken down by category and the funding that supports that. Salaries at 56% is the largest portion of our spending, followed by contributions to reserves and capital. In order to be able to fund that, municipalities have very limited revenue tools, and as you can see here, with taxes and user fees and service charges, that's 95% of our funding. And you can see the split here. 77% of property taxes comes from residential, whereas 23% comes from commercial. I would note that year over year, there has been improvement. So in 2024, taxes accounted for 64% of the funding. So we've been able to leverage user fees and service charges to a greater extent in this budget. In addition, salaries, wages, and benefits in 24 were 59%, and we've reduced that to 56% through this budget. I mentioned funding tools. It's important to have a lens on assessment growth, as this is really the only tool municipalities have to fund growth. The city of Brampton expanded considerably over 2000 to 2019. But that has concluded as most of our greenfield development has been built out. So since 2019, we've been seeing around 1% assessment growth. 2024 was actually 0.79%. Unfortunately, this is probably what we'll be expecting going forward, rather than what we had the prior 20 years. So it's very important that we're aware that $7 to $4.5 million is not sufficient funding to grow a community of this size. However, this is the tool that we have available, so it's critical that we continue to advocate to our other government counterparts to provide us with tools to be able to grow. In terms of where the property taxes are allocated, the city of Brampton receives 40 cents for every tax dollar paid by businesses and residents. Of that 40 cents, approximately 25% of that goes to capital infrastructure to maintain, repair, and grow our capital assets. The next largest categories are transit and fire and emergency services at 7.8% each. And then we have public works, parks, library, and enforcement. In terms of the capital budget, you can see the distribution here of the $368 million, with 37% allocated to public works, 27% for community services, and 17% for transit. As mentioned earlier, in terms of community living investments, we're investing $70 million here in parks, $62 million in transit, $38 million in downtown revitalization and Riverwalk, $35 million in recreation centers, and $65 million in roads. And in terms of funding, we are receiving a considerable portion of federal and provincial grants through the Building Faster Fund, the Housing Accelerator Fund, the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, ICIP, and the recently announced $29.7 million provincial grant for Riverwalk. We're pleased. There was a tremendous effort this year to extend our capital program out to 5 years. In the past, we were providing a 3-year outlook. So starting with this budget, we'll be providing a 5-year outlook. And as you can see, the public works and engineering will be the largest extent of our forecast. They'll be delivering the most of our program over the next 5 years, followed by transit. So in transit, we began growing significantly in 2006 with the implementation of Zoom in 2008, and that carried forward for a decade. Those investments and that growth is now coming due for repair and replacement. So going forward, the city will need to put significantly more capital towards transit to maintain the growth that has been happening since 2006. In terms of contributions to infrastructure to support that repair and replacement and growth, you can see here that since 2019, we've effectively doubled our contributions to infrastructure. This year is proposing a 10% increase in contributions with $12.8 million. And that's broken down by 7.6% for infrastructure levy, 3.8% for the transit levy, and 1.4% for the stormwater charge. This really demonstrates council and the city's commitment to maintaining our infrastructure. Lastly, just wanted to end off on the tremendous transformation that council has been working on for the last few years. There's been $1.4 billion of capital projects approved in 24 and 23. The 25 is largely focused on getting those projects shoveled in the ground. The 25 project does support many of those initiatives like Embleton, the new transit facility, and Riverwalk. But we also are making new investments in things like cricket, outdoor fields, ice rinks, Cassie Campbell Parks enhancement, beautification, and revitalization of our downtown with the streetscaping. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Chair Toor.
Thank you, Mark. First of all, I want to congratulate you and the rest of the budget team and the economic development team as well for working so hard to put this budget together and setting the stage for further investment attraction and business retention in our city. I'd like to also recognize our city treasurer, Nash Damer, who's also online, who has provided exemplary leadership with the city's finances for many years. Now we get to the exciting part of today's session with the questions from our audience. Some of these questions were also submitted in advance to us online that we will be entertaining along with live questions that anybody on the call may have. Just to note that these slides that were just presented by Mark will also be available on the city's website at brampton.ca/budget. All information related to the budget will be on that same website. And with that, we will begin by questions. So if you have any questions that are live right now, we can take those as well. But to kick us off, I'll go with a question that we received online. There's two questions related to transit. One came from a very strong advocate for public transit in our city, Chris Drew, who is a land use planner. Another question from the Manager of Policy and Government Relations at the Brampton Board of Trade, Vijay Singh, who is also online with the CEO of the Brampton Board of Trade. This question is, what investments will be made for Brampton Transit? What funding would be available for Brampton's transit projects, that is the LRT, particularly in light of tumult in federal leadership?
So I can hop in there and answer that question, Councillor Toor, and thank you to Vijay and Chris for being great advocates for transit. This budget does include significant investments for transit in a number of fronts. One, we are building a $300 million third transit facility that will really allow Brampton Transit long-term to double in size. That transit facility was critical. Secondly, I would note we're adding 52,000 new transit hours, operating hours to Brampton Transit. We're purchasing new buses, we're adding new bus shelters, and so we continue to make strategic investments in Brampton Transit as Canada's fastest growing transit system. But we do need that LRT project. That is critical. It was leaked out last year on CP24, and the Premier and the Transportation Minister have confirmed it to be accurate, the tunneled extension of the LRT into Brampton's downtown. They haven't done the formal government announcement. We anticipate that will be coming soon. I'm told it's coming soon, but the fact they verified their own leak is obviously very encouraging news. That will really connect Brampton Transit, GO, the entire network of transit. Really excited about that project. The way these LRT projects have been funded elsewhere is it's not a local contribution to the capital. For example, in Hamilton, it was 50-50 federal and provincial government. And so the expectation is not for us to have contributions to the capital infrastructure of the LRT expansion. The expectation, though, is that we will face a greater burden when it comes to operating costs, to the point that if you look at Ottawa and Toronto, they have made requests to the province to help subsidize the operations of these higher order transit projects. We're not there yet. Right now, we're just focused on making sure they get shovels in the ground. I know a big city needs a modern transit system, and that's why public transit is going to continue to be a top priority for us here at Brampton City Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. And with that, I will also invite the CEO of the Brampton Board of Trade, J-Paul Massey Singh, who is also online with a question on behalf of the Board of Trade. J-Paul, please go ahead and ask your question.
I think just pulling him up. Just needs to unmute him. She hasn't spoken. Okay.
Okay, while we wait for J-Paul, we will move on to further questions that we have that were submitted, or one of these questions that were submitted earlier as well, from Ryan Elcock. Ryan is very passionate about the city as well, and he submitted us 23 questions. I won't go through all of them, but just for the sake of time, we will go with this one. How does the budget address the needs of industrial zones and commercial spaces to accommodate growing businesses?
So I'm not sure who wants to jump in on that one. I'm happy to. Obviously, we prioritize employment land. We work closely with the Brampton Board of Trade, the Toronto Region Board of Trade, and recently the Toronto Region Board of Trade had a summit about protecting employment lands, and I was one of the speakers there. And so, if you look at the efforts of Denise and her team, Martin Bull, Paula Dante, it's really about making sure that we actively promote the vacant employment lands that exist. We protect those vacant employment lands and look for signature tenants. And so that is obviously part of a healthy mix in a city. A city cannot be entirely residential. We've had a number of, of a multitude of major industrial wins in recent years in terms of economic development attraction. And I think it's fair to say we have a few more coming our way that have yet to be announced that are going to be very good news for Brampton as well.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. If we have J. Paul on the line.
Thank you, Councillor Toor. I am here. I apologize. I wasn't able to unmute myself earlier.
No problem at all.
Thank you for
Please
making
go
the
ahead.
time. And just if I may, on behalf of our 650 members and who employ almost 60,000 individuals in our community, thanks for this opportunity to provide input on behalf of the business community. It's a great recognition of the role employers play here in the community, and I appreciate this opportunity to engage with the budget team on this. At the Board of Trade, we reached out to our members to identify priorities and develop some questions. As noted, myself and a number of our members are on the call today, so really looking forward to some dialogue. As it pertains to our first question, really understand in order to manage the budget that in this particular year, we did utilize our reserves to facilitate some of the investments, which the Brampton Board of Trade does support. In principle, that is a strong move to make in order to manage our tax burden. That said, we do have some questions regarding what is the strategy around our reserves, and is there a particular level that we're looking to maintain as a community? And in particular, in anticipation of future downloads from the region, how are we going to be managing and growing those reserves in order to facilitate future capital projects and infrastructure in our community? Are we looking at additional development charges, tax increases, other approaches? We just love to understand where we're going strategically with the reserves going forward.
So I'm happy to jump in there, and then if Mark or Gurpartap want to add any comments. The first thing I would say is a year ago, the province was mentioning very clearly in the midst of the housing crisis that they felt development charges were too high and that cities were sitting on reserve accounts that were too large, essentially that funds were taken, but they weren't shovel ready. They were sitting on them for long periods and not actually using the reserve accounts. It was sort of being called a hidden tax on housing and development. And so we pushed back against that in Brampton, saying that we are shovel ready. We don't plan to take funds that we don't intend to use, that every dollar taken in development charges and put into our reserve accounts is for projects. In fairness, there was a long time where Brampton collected development charges, but really didn't get shovels in the ground. That's changed. We've been putting the pieces in place, and it's really coming to a point this year and last year where it's a beautiful thing that's happening. Brampton is now seeing all these projects we worked on for years coming to fruition. So Riverwalk, we talked about Riverwalk for 10 years. That started fully funded, provincial, federal, and municipal. And, obviously that was something that we collected in reserves. If you look at other projects that were pending, our Center for Innovation, that RFP has been won, and that project is starting a partnership with the City of Brampton. Before the State of the City address, we're going to be announcing one of the anchor tenants that will be in that beautiful building in our downtown. The $300 million transit facility, that's another example of something that we collected development charges for that was pending for a number of years, and we just had the sod turning a few months ago. And so there may be criticism of other cities that they were taking development charges but not getting shovels into the ground. That's not the case here. If you look at the Embleton Recreation Center, same thing. We're actually now, it's going to be we're hoping to have that construction completed by 2026, but all these projects that we talked about for years and years are actually shovels in the ground right now. And so it's a very exciting time in Brampton. In terms of downloading from the region, we don't expect to have any cost downloaded to us that would require us to use our own reserve accounts. We expect tax points to be exchanged. City of Brampton, the additional areas of ability, reserve accounts for capital projects that the region was starting on will then be transferred to the city. If there was any unanticipated expense, that would certainly be a grievance point with us in the city. What we're being told now is that for every capital project, the reciprocal reserve account will be transferred to us. So hopefully, J. Paul, that relieves any concern you have about unintended costs coming from the region appeal. I know we always need to be on guard that in a change the province does, sometimes mistakes are made, but we do have the assurance of the province that every reserve account associated with a project will be transferred to us.
Thank you, Mayor Brennan. That's good news to hear. And by all means, do please let us know how the Board of Trade can work with the city to ensure that we're advocating for transparency and fulfillment on that transfer.
We also have live questions coming, one from Moaz Ahmed, who is from Scooty. One of the businesses that was actually incubated in the city of Brampton, has been very successful small business story coming out of our city. Moaz, please unmute yourself and go ahead with your question.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of myself and my team at Scooty. I'm also the chair of the Policy and Government Relations Committee at the Brampton Board of Trade. This is an important event or opportunity to have this dialogue.
Well,
Yes, can you hear me?
sorry to interrupt. Yeah, can you just speak louder, please?
Okay, my apologies. Can you hear me now?
Way better. Thank you.
Okay. All right, my apologies for that. So yes, I'm the Chief Community Officer at Scooty. Scooty was incubated through Brampton's economic development and entrepreneurship ecosystem. It's very important to us that we give back to the community, and one of the reasons why we're here today is to contribute our knowledge and experience on shared micromobility and active transportation and how those benefit the city. I have a lot of questions, but my primary question right now is just understanding that we don't know what's ahead with the tariffs, and we don't know what's ahead exactly with the region appeal. We don't know what's ahead with the province and what might come out of election campaign. We don't know what's ahead with the federal government. It might come out of an election campaign. And it's often projects like active transportation and community projects and such that may get cut if a city decides that, unfortunately, we're in a tough situation, we're in a bad economic situation, and therefore we have to make sacrifices. However, transit and active transportation is very significant for the health of a city. It's very significant because it is a highly efficient way of getting people around. It's great for decongestion. It's great for active public health. It's great for social skills and community connections, and all of those things matter. So I just want to ensure or hope that the city is going to maintain those programs, even if they do their best to maintain those programs, even if money has to go somewhere else and they have to make sacrifices. Thank you.
Well, maybe just to say that if there's a change in provincial or federal government, I don't anticipate that change in the active transportation strategy in the city of Brampton. We don't get significant, we don't get funding really from other levels of government for active transportation. There's been some nominal programs, but I expect us to continue to be a city that wants to lean into micromobility and active transportation. And we appreciate local startups like yours that have been part of that success story in our city.
Thank you, Moz, for that question. We have another question that is coming in live through the chat. I'll just read the question. It says, thank you to the Mayor and Council for your continued support for arts and culture industry in Brampton, where we see so much momentum. Could you please share a bit about support for creative industries, artistic businesses, and arts and culture in the budget? Thrilled to see the necessary investment in transit, healthcare, and sports facilities, but would love to hear your thoughts on continuing to grow the significant economic impact arts and culture has in downtown and all across Brampton.
So I think it's fair to say we're big believers that arts is an economic driver. If you look at our Advanced Brampton Fund and the support we have for the arts, it is unique. We really encourage festivals and events in the city of Brampton. I don't think there's a weekend that goes by in the city of Brampton in good weather in spring, summer and fall, where we don't have events that are supported by the city of Brampton. But the Rose Theater is a gem. We use that as a platform to celebrate artists. I would note that we have 1.75 million in grants through the Advanced Brampton Fund in 2025. This is an increase of, I believe, 250,000 from the previous year. And so we're going to continue to support local artists and hoping that that Brampton can be their platform, their springboard for success.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Another question coming in from Pam Banks. Given the city of Brampton's previous investments in the Innovation District, how does the proposed 2025 budget plan to further support the development and expansion of this ecosystem to ensure sustained economic growth and innovation in our community? I will take the lead on this question, and Mayor Brown, feel free to jump in. Thank you, Pam, for that question. So in this budget, we're renewing our commitment to our partners that are part of the Innovation District. We will have a renewed commitment for the Rogers Cybersecurity Catalyst and also the Brampton Venture Zone. Previously, we had a 5-year agreement with both of these partners that is coming to an end. So we're actively seeking, to extend that partnership again to have them stay in our innovation district. Part of the budget is also a commitment to the Center for Innovation that's being built in our downtown that will attract major businesses and investment coming into our downtown here as well. Mayor Brown, you want to add anything further to that?
I think it's going to be a special year. When we see the construction start on the Center for the Center for Innovation, that's going to be a real catalyst. We got a lot of partners in our innovation district, but I really believe the epicenter of that is going to be the Center for Innovation. I believe it's a 4-year construction timetable, but when you hear about some of the tenants that have expressed interest in locating in Brampton, it's really, really exciting. I really believe that is going to be an economic catalyst for the innovation district. I know we have one anchor tenant that's looking at, close to 2,500 jobs in our downtown. And so, stay tuned for good news in the months ahead for how our downtown is going to be a catalyst for jobs of the future.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. We can't say too much in reveal, but like the mayor said, stay tuned. We have another question coming in live from the chat from Scott Goodison. I'll read the question. It says, my question centers around the Riverwalk. I was there when my friend and long-term Brampton resident Bob Nutt Brown talked about San Antonio's Riverwalk. With money committed to the walk, will we see shovels in the ground this year?
So obviously the work behind Riverwalk has already started, but I think what you're getting to is, we're in a floodplain in the downtown, which meant that we couldn't build additional density because there's a special policy area and until Riverwalk was complete. So people understand why you're spending $100 million. It's really to unleash billions of dollars in economic activity. Riverwalk was critical if we're ever going to see our downtown take off. Here's the challenge: is Riverwalk's going to take about 4 years for us to finish. And we want these construction projects to start yesterday. I want economic activity now in our downtown. And so we met with the Premier, the Minister of Natural Resources, and said, could they do a similar agreement to what they did with the Donlands in Toronto? And in Toronto, where they had a similar floodplain issue. They said you can start approving building permits right away, but you won't be able to give out the occupancy permit until your floodplain project is complete. And so if you look at the signature construction projects we're having in the downtown, the Heritage Theater, the Center for Innovation, these are 4-year construction periods. So it lines up beautifully. And so with that provincial permission that we've been granted verbally, we're waiting for the official letter to come in, but verbally they have said yes, that'll allow us to issue building permits right away. So literally we could see construction beginning this year. I expect to see construction beginning in March, April, May on some of these key projects. And so that is based on that agreement that it replicates what they did in Toronto. So building permits, yes. Occupancy not issued until Riverwalk complete.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, for that answer. There's another question that's coming in from George, who's online right now. My question is, for future strategic reasons, what is in the budget to address the high cost of car insurance in Brampton? How's the budget approaching this? Rate anywhere else in Ontario is 15 to 30% cheaper. Mayor Brown?
So this is not something that we can change from a municipal budget. The reality is this is regulated by the province of Ontario. It's up to the province to regulate a change. We have postal code discrimination in Ontario. In other provinces, they don't, have higher premiums based on postal codes. We do in Ontario. It's really adversely affected Brampton, Mississauga, Vaughan, Scarborough. I think it's unfortunate. We presented the largest petition in Brampton history on this to the provincial legislature a few years ago. During our last term of council, we always include this in our advocacy point to the province, but for a number of reasons, they haven't followed through on changes to insurance. And I'd say this has been something that's been lobbied, NDP, Liberal, and Conservative governments at Queen's Park, and despite aggressive lobbying to all the parties, we have not seen a success in ending postal code discrimination.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. We have another question coming in live from Oak and Oak Solution Group. Good morning, Mayor. What provisions are being made in this year's budget to support initiatives that enhance the settlement and integration of immigrants and international students, particularly in areas like affordable housing, access to jobs, and essential community services?
So, and maybe Councillor Toor wants to jump in here too. Settlement services are funded by the federal government, but we are in an area of change right now in terms of immigration policies. There's historically been a consensus on immigration in Ottawa amongst all political parties that Canada was a country that welcomed immigration. That consensus is starting to change. You are seeing radical changes to immigration policy in Canada. In some places, it was needed refinements, but in other areas, we're concerned in Brampton about what's happening. If you look at work permits that businesses depend on, you are seeing the baby thrown out with the bathwater. I know that these foreign work permits in many industries are integral to their economic activity. In terms of international students, we did have a concern that the number of student visas approved were not coincided with the housing investments required. We want to see academic institutions to have a plan for housing for every student visa that's approved. The federal and provincial governments have radically cut the number of international students being approved to Canada. I think this is actually healthy for the institutions that don't have housing. For the institutions that are building housing, then I think they would have the capacity to handle those numbers. Look at Algoma as a great example in the sector, a good example. They're actually building student housing. That's what we wanted to see come from these changes. They're working with the private sector to make sure students that are coming to their campus will have a housing plan. And so I think in the months ahead, some of these issues are going to be worked out. And obviously there's going to be a federal election at some point where I know this will be part of the discussion that happens federally. It is a federal jurisdiction. We don't have a Ministry of Immigration locally. That is a federal post. But we'll make sure that our opinions are heard during that debate.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Just to add to that, we're also actively working with the Brampton Board of Trade for an upcoming roundtable discussion where we will be inviting businesses across the city to participate to talk about the issues, if they are facing any, regarding the changes in the immigration policies that are happening federally right now and how it will affect their businesses. We also have the Beehive that is part of our innovation district. That is a center that attracts small businesses and bright minds from across the world to set up their home here in Brampton and provides them the support for them to start their businesses and succeed. We will, in the very near future, also be making an announcement about a new program that is to develop the existing talent that we have here in the city of Brampton. Alongside with that, on the file of affordable housing, Brampton, amongst other municipalities, is one of the fastest when it comes to turnaround times in making sure that we can build a new housing stock in our city. We're seeing a massive increase in the total construction value by the end of the year to date for 2024. We're crossing the $2 billion mark here in our city. So that should help us in tackling the housing affordability crisis that we're going through right now. We have another question coming from Tom Kenelopoulos from Calo Developments. We acknowledge that the city is budgeting for a brand new development charge study. Is the city looking to lower development charges like Vaughan and Burlington? If so, what steps is the city taking to prioritize urban gray or brownfield infill development over greenfield infrastructure intense developments and the impact this will have on the budget?
So, Tom, thank you for the question, and thank you to your family. Your family have been real job creators in the city of Brampton, and I look at that project that you built on here, Ontario, and look at all the businesses that you have attracted there. It's beautiful to see, and I know you want to expand that. Seeing an employment building fully rented out is always something we love to see with our economic development department. We are looking at development charge incentives for employment. And so, when it comes to residential housing, there are needs. We need recreation, we need roads, we need sidewalks, we need a fire hall. There are simply critical services that we have to provide, and that's why those development charges are necessary. I wouldn't want to build a neighborhood that doesn't have recreation access, or sidewalks, or a park that kids can walk to. But when it comes to attracting employment, I believe it can be the difference between attracting that key tenant or not attracting it. Sometimes if you're not able to attract, you're not losing anything. And so stay tuned for what will be a significant incentive for employment. And a great example of that would be MDA, where we worked with them with a significant incentive. And now we have what I believe is, a prize tenant, not just for Brampton, but for Canada, a recipient of the largest space grant in Canadian history.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. We also have live joining us from Sheridan College, Harinder Mully. Harinder has a question on behalf of the college. Harinder, if you're online, can you please unmute yourself and ask the question? Can you see if you can unmute?
May not be in the ready yet. So okay, we can move to another one.
Okay, we can move on to the next question. We have a question here from Marlene. Good morning. I'm the founder of the Chance Center and Hope Indoors, organization that provides job readiness programs and life skills training for neurodiverse individuals and underserved communities. We also work to create inclusive employment opportunities. With Brampton focusing on economic development, what specific initiatives are being funded to promote inclusive hiring practices and support neurodiverse individuals in joining the workforce? How can organizations like mine partner with the city to enhance these efforts?
So I would encourage you to work with our equity unit. We are big believers that every community radiates talent, but every community needs to be given a chance just this weekend, my office organized with the equity unit youth training job fair. We had 100 youth from diverse communities and worked with them on how we can integrate them into the workforce. I would say, please stay in touch with our equity unit. We want to make sure that we let local businesses know that the talent that exists out there. Sometimes it's making sure that everyone knows about the opportunity that exists. So we'd love to work with organizations that share that desire to make sure everyone has an opportunity to succeed. And we'll send you a note with, I'm sure we have your number on the on this live stream, and we'll send you we'll connect you with our equity unit that actively organizes programming like that.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Absolutely agree with you. We will definitely connect with you, Marlene, to work on this. We have another question that's coming here in the chat from Arnav Talwani. Says, good morning, Mayor. With the opening of TMU's medical school, there will likely be some increase in the founding of startups, particularly in the biomedical sector, spinning out of the university in Brampton. What is the city doing to accommodate, encourage these initiatives? And are there plans, if not in this budget, then in future budgets, to support the growth and development of such startups? Thank you, Arnav, for that question. You're speaking the same language. We're speaking here at the city of Brampton. Deputy Mayor Singh and the president of the Toronto Metropolitan University, Mohammed Lashmi, have been champions and have started the MedTech Task Force here at the city of Brampton. That included a lot of the industry partners that are there in the healthcare sector to talk about exactly this. With the opening of the Toronto Metropolitan University's new medical school, I think it is a great opportunity for us to attract and build on our health tech sector. Part of that City of Brampton's commitment right now is to be funding a study that will jointly be done with the university to talk about, to do some research and feasibility studies on wet and dry lab spaces here in the city of Brampton. Through initiatives like that and participation in other MedTech conferences and the work that's being done through the MedTech Task Force, we're confident that we will be attracting investments in this sector to our city. For any further information on that, feel free to reach out to the Economic Development Office, and we will be happy to connect with you. And especially if you have any ideas or leads that can help us, we would definitely be interested in chatting. Thank you for that question.
I'll just add in, if you look at the employment created from companies like Boston Scientific or Medtronic, this is a massive growth sector. Like it or not, people are always going to be challenged by health adversity. And with an aging population increasing and frankly, more complex health challenges, there's an opportunity for startups to help handle these challenges. There's always a good idea that can help emerge. And I hope that we can incubate those companies here in Brampton. And we're going to lean into supporting our MedTech Task Force to make sure that there is an ecosystem in Brampton that supports those startups.
Thank you once again for that question. So I have two questions coming in through the live chat. One from Colin McLean says, good morning, Mayor. Thank you for hosting this. Given that the 2025 budget is focused on driving progress and prosperity while enhancing the quality of life for residents, what portion of the budget will be allocated for community and economic development, particularly programs to get more youth employed by the city and local businesses? Here are some stats and data to consider. According to Peel Police, there is a 20% drop in youth crime rates when youth are employed. As per Stats Canada, employed youth reported a 25% improvement in mental health and wellness. Employed youth boost economic growth by $8,000 to $12,000 annually to the local economy. Just to start off on this question, City of Brampton has a youth advisory team that has been working really actively especially over the past 2 years to create these youth employment opportunities, especially here in our city. Just last week, we had a youth readiness program, which was a seminar to speak with interested youth across the city of Brampton to talk about employment opportunities, to get them ready for those applications that will be opening up very soon, whether it is resume building, any skills that need to be identified. We've been working on those opportunities through the Canada Summer Jobs Program. last year we were able to employ almost 250 youth in various departments here in our city. We have some numbers here as well that we can share. When it comes to the youth strategy and initiative summer students, we're hiring 27 part-time employees
Top of the 200.
on top of the 250 that are already coming in through the Canada Summer Jobs Program. Mayor Brown, if you would like to add anything further to that.
Just to say, we're big believers. You invest in youth today, it pays dividends tomorrow. It's why we're also having youth hubs. One youth hub's already opened at South Fletcher's, or Susan Fennell Recreation Center. Another one will be opening at Century Gardens. Obviously, the very large summer internship program we have at the city of Brampton is meant to mentor the leaders of tomorrow. But this is just one aspect of local government. I look at the region of Peel that hires summer students as well. And another area that I'm involved in is the Peel Police. I sit on the Peel Police Services Board, and we've greatly expanded our YIPPY program, that is youth and policing. And so we go to diverse communities, marginalized communities, and give them an opportunity for a summer internship in policing. It's been incredibly successful. That is a pretty large program here in Peel now. So there's a ton of avenues for young people to gain summer employment, and hopefully that becomes, their pathway to employment when they finish their studies.
And just to add on to that as well, this past year, we were very proud as a city of Brampton to host our very first hackathon here in the city to solve local challenges and local problems that provided an engagement opportunity for more than 200 youth from undergraduate universities and colleges around our city to participate in. I know that Councillor Santos is also a big believer in investing in our youth. Councillor Santos, would you like to add anything further to this before I go on to the next question?
Thanks so much, Councillor Toor. The reality is, and I don't have much to add, quite frankly, after what Mayor Brown has shared, but whether that's Parks and Recreation or some of the youth programs that we actually have through Parks and Recreation, we are investing heavily into our young people, and even through the support, as mentioned, through BEC and the Summer Company Program, where we give grants to students who have their own businesses and trying to accelerate the businesses over the summer, $3,000 grants, I believe it is. And so happy that we continue to support our young folks. Yesterday in the Budget Committee meeting, we actually had a group of young students from one of the schools I represent who visited the chamber and engaged in the process of the budget itself. So thanks, Councillor Toor, for the opportunity to talk about our incredible youth. We are supporting them in all of our departments throughout the city of Brampton.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Moving on to, we're getting a lot more questions coming in, so I'm going to try to go through them as quickly as possible. We have a question here from Christina. I appreciate the work that Brampton Entrepreneur Center is doing, especially the training with Starter Company Plus program for its impactful and beneficial training, which has significantly supported our business growth. However, our greatest challenge remains financial sustainability. Can you consider expanding financial access for small businesses, especially for businesses owned by minority groups? I'll get us started on that. Part of the Municipal Act also doesn't allow the city of Brampton for bonusing or providing funding directly to small businesses, but we are an excellent channel when it comes to dispersing federal or provincial funding that comes down for small businesses or economic development growth here in our city. The program that you mentioned, Starter Company Plus program, we have the Summer Company program as well for new businesses. These are $3,000 to $5,000 in grants. Just past week, we had the Minister of Finance from the Ontario government, Peter Bethlin-Falvey, here in the city of Brampton to talk about further investments for the local entrepreneur centers. We're constantly advocating for these changes. Last week as well, we were honored to have the federal minister for FedDev Ontario, Minister Ruby Sahota, who's our local member of parliament from the city of Brampton as well. She came to visit the Innovation District along with the president of FedDev Ontario, FedDev Canada, in fact, to see further investments that they can make into municipalities. So we will continue our advocacy for more funding when it comes to small businesses, like previously mentioned, especially for neurodiverse individuals, or it's groups that are underserved right now in the economy, to further boost those numbers. Mayor Brown, and if nothing further to add, can I move on to the next question?
I may have something to add.
Sure. We have our acting director for economic development to
Angels investment.
add something to
Yeah.
this.
I just wanted to add, thank you, Councillor Toor, that if you have not yet, I highly encourage that you book a consultation with one of our staff members at the Brampton Entrepreneur Centre. A consultation will allow our business advisors to work with you on your cash flow statements. We can make great recommendations on, we have a great tool that we work with the federal government, and it's a grant finder where we can look for, we can punch in all of the details of your business and find any matching grants that you'll be able to apply for. But I definitely think that it's a consultation with one of our business advisors would be helpful to look at your cash flows. And also we bring in accountants to speak at the Entrepreneur Center. Mayor Brown also flagged that we do have a new angel investor group in the city of Brampton with our Altitude Accelerator. So our business consultation team can work with you on that.
Excellent. Thank you, Denise. And moving on to the next question that I have here from Germaine online. The question is regarding safety and security. Is there any funding being given for safety and security for our local businesses and residents? For example, speed cameras, speed bumps, additional policing to our communities. Mayor Brown?
So through our region appeal budget, we do investments when it comes to policing, but we supplement that with local investment as well. And what I mean by that is the technology. A few years ago, I remember asking the chief of police, how come we didn't see any shootings on the 407 when we had a number of shootings on the 403 and 410? And he said, well, there's cameras on the 407. Organized crime knows to stay away from cameras. Since that point, we added CCTV cameras to the 403 and 410. And guess what? No more shootings. And so using that sample of success, we are rolling out the largest deployment of high resolution cameras in Canada. We're putting 40 high resolution cameras at intersections in the city of Brampton. So if someone commits a crime in the city, as soon as they go through one of those intersections, we'll have digital evidence that can make sure they are prosecuted and held accountable for their actions. We have a goal to make Brampton the worst place in the country to commit a crime, the absolute worst place. I want organized crime to know, just like they stay away from the 407, stay away from Brampton, because we're going to catch you. And you're going to spend time in custody. The rollout of those cameras is happening this year. So stay tuned for that exciting news to make Brampton a safe community, the safest possible. On top of that, we are greatly expanding the Peel Police in this year's budget, the largest expansion of Peel Police in regional history in 40 years. We are adding 300 new officers this year, 300 new officers. We're also building the first new police division in Brampton in 40 years. So it's an exciting time for public safety, because I think we're making changes right now that are really going to pay dividends in the short term.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. And just to add some numbers here that we're getting from Mark, our Chief Budgeting Officer, we're going to have 185 cameras installed across the city. And there's also significant speed cameras. And there will be 50 intersections that will be going on live as well. And along with that, we have significant investment through Public Works on our traffic calming measures, including speed bumps that are being actively installed across the city. I believe we have Harinder Mali from Sheridan College live again with us. Harinder, if you would like to unmute and ask your question from Sheridan College.
While we're waiting for Harinder, just to say another good example of creating programming, academic programming that links education to employment is Sheridan. I love how they've really leaned into pathways that lead to local jobs. It'd be great if we could have Harinder on the call. So hopefully she's found a way to unmute herself.
Yep. While we wait again, we'll move on to the next question that we have coming in from Chris Drew. Chris asks, if there was a job segment of Brampton's economy you'd like to see grow or have sector jobs in, what would it be, and how does 2025 continue to help attract new businesses to Brampton?
What a great question. Well, I think it's fair to say we're excited about the med tech field. I think those are good paying jobs. And I think the opening of the medical school will be a catalyst for the expansion of that sector. Of course, the construction of the second hospital begins this year as well. In the vicinity of the hospital, there's another opportunity for med tech jobs. I look at the food processing industry that is growing. I think there is high tech food processing opportunities for companies that are innovative. I'd like to see that sector continue to grow. I'd also say, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg of what we're seeing when it comes to the space jobs. I had a chance to spend some time at MDA, and we did a podcast with
Mike Greenlee.
with Mike Greenlee, the CEO of MDA, and it was with the Ontario Manufacturing Podcast. And Mike Greenlee went on about the areas that he believes they're about to embark upon. You think of space jobs, you think of the satellite imaging that have been quite common, but in terms of the work they're doing in the health space, in terms of energy space, this is a whole new frontier, and we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg right now. I think there's going to be significant employment generated from what MDA is embarking upon right now. They're going to be not just a Canadian success story, but a global success story. So watch their success and what they're creating. Right now, we're talking about 700 rocket science jobs. That is just the tip of the iceberg of what I think they're capable of.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. I think the short answer is we're not saying no to any investment that is coming to the city of Brampton. We have a question online from Afnan. Says, good morning, Mayor and members of the community. With transportation and manufacturing businesses being noted segments of the entrepreneurial and economic makeup, how can businesses who have set roots to build in our city find continued support to articulate further growth, particularly around technology, infrastructure, and workforce? And what are some of the things we can do to ensure these initiatives succeed?
I think one of the Brampton advantages is workforce. I think a lot of cities, they lack the ability to have employment needs met. That's not the case in Brampton. We have a hardworking, talented population that consistently shows when a business expands in Brampton, they can hire the talent locally. So that is an advantage. In terms of getting product to marketplace, obviously gridlock is something that plagues all urban areas. I hope that the introduction of the 413 will help diminish some of that. Obviously, that's a long construction rollout that takes time. But I do think that's part of the investment matrix, looking at congestion, and it is a challenge in the GTA. I'd say it's a lot better to be on Brampton, the outskirts of the GTA, at the intersection of all major highways, right next to Pearson, right next to having intermodal hub really in our city gives us an advantage in terms of getting product to the marketplace. Imagine being in downtown Toronto and having to get your product to the intermodal hub in Brampton or Vaughan. So there is a Brampton advantage in terms of product to marketplace, but we'll work with local businesses, reach out to that ECDEV team. If you're confronted with a problem, we got smart people here that will work with you to try to address that. I just look in this room, with Allison Theodore, Erica Henry Jackman, also sitting with us. We've got a really talented team that would be excited to look at ways to support you.
Thank you. So please do stay in touch with us. We have our sector leads in advanced manufacturing as well that would be happy to work with you and see if we can explore any opportunities. Do we still have Harinder live? If Harinder would like to jump in and ask the question.
We've unmuted her mic, but she's not responding.
Okay.
That's okay. We can move further on from that. We have another question here from Akilo. Says, good morning. My question is based on immigrant with good intention to establish a business in Canada that will help the youth benefits from its operations in some significant ways and to all Canadians in general. just to comment on that, I think, and we agree with you on this. I don't see a question in there, but I understand the point you're trying to make here. I think that's something we talked about earlier as well. The contribution of immigrants and bright minds that choose to come to Canada and call Canada home, and the supports that we have available to help make sure that they can find that home here in Brampton, especially within our innovation district, that can help them grow further.
Read Harinder's question.
Sure. I think we have we're not able to hear Harinder, but we have her question through her submission online right now. It says, is there funding in the budget to support a dedicated workforce coordinator position within the Economic Development Office? The work of the EDO is invaluable, and we believe additional resources in specialized areas are necessary. With the skilled trades crisis impacting local employers, what steps are being taken to address this gap?
Okay. Councillor Toor, you want to jump in?
Sure, I'd be happy to take to start us off with that answer for that question. Thank you, Harinder, for submitting that question. We couldn't agree more with you that we need to invest further in our skilled trades. We're active partners with both the provincial and the federal government through their skilled trades programs. I know the Ontario government right now has the skilled trades development fund, and we are helping businesses, apply for that fund to get more information regarding that. Our key priorities are aligned with programming that is coming out of Sheridan College as well, with advanced manufacturing and food and beverage sector. We have sector managers for these two sectors that work in the Economic Development Office that always partner with post-secondary institutions like Sheridan College, like Algoma University, to make sure that we can connect them with employers, address those gaps that we're seeing in skilled trades, and how we can implement changes to.
Yeah, you know what I'd add in, Councillor Toor, is maybe we need to set up, and I'd be happy to help coordinate it, to get Minister Piccini to do a session with the Board of Trade. A lot of skilled trades are regulated by the province of Ontario, and the funding for skilled trades is also, there is a significant fund available through his ministry. And so I would encourage having a conversation with him. I think the province, given the fact that they really are the driver in this space, we should insist on having an opportunity to talk about the employment needs in Brampton and some of the, I think, roadblocks to getting people into the skilled trades, but there are still too many roadblocks in Ontario when it comes to the skilled trades.
I just wanted to add that we are working closely with Magna in the city of Brampton to do some matchmaking to ensure that we're upgrading the training to match the skills that they need right on the floor and ensure that that's happening in a quick way. Andrea Williams, our sector manager for advanced manufacturing, has also let me know that we're working on some new programming at the high school level with Judith Nyman and Bramley Secondary School to support skilled trades right at the high school level, which is fantastic.
Definitely, and thank you, Mayor Brown, for making a comment on that as well. The City of Brampton is working with the Board of Trade right now to address those challenges, but also to have that information session, a roundtable or discussion panel amongst businesses, with Minister Piccini, who is the Ontario Minister for Labor. Moving on to another question that was submitted to us online from Jesse Kaser. Jesse asks, looking to get help with funding through companies or angel investments. Thank you for that question, Jesse. Like the mayor mentioned earlier, the Altitude Accelerator was able to launch the Brampton Angels program last year, connecting startups with angel investors. We're pleased to inform that in the inaugural year, they have seen tremendous success with a $2.3 million last year alone to support local entrepreneurs. If you're interested in seeking out angel investors, pitching your ideas, your business ideas, and looking for funding to help you scale up, I suggest you apply and reach out to the Altitude Accelerator. You can directly reach out to our team as well, and we would be happy to make that connection. We have a question coming here online from Gurpartap. High-rise builders, what programs or incentives will be available to support small businesses, startups, and entrepreneurs in Brampton? And how will the city leverage provincial funding opportunities such as those provided by the Strong Mayors Building Homes Act 2022?
So the Strong Mayors Act doesn't provide financial incentives. It really just puts a priority on housing construction and making sure that there's not NIMBYism that delays development. I think that was the sentiment that the mayor has the obligation to the entire city, and sometimes development gets put on hold because of a very local issue. That really hasn't been the case here in Brampton, but that was the genesis behind the legislation. But we're obviously, we want to see construction. We want to see shovels in the ground. And if we can work with you to make sure there's no red tape, and we mean that, no red tape. So, our planning commission, we talk to them regularly. We want to be the fastest place to build, to invest, to create jobs anywhere in Canada. If there's any red tape, let us know. We'll work with you on addressing that.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. We have a question coming online for Don Khan, who is the interim director at the Brampton Venture Zone by the TMU. Ferdon asks, over the past 5 years, Brampton has differentiated itself by becoming a hub for innovation and startup activity. How do you foresee the growth of this type of activity over the next 5 years? Ferdon, just to comment on this as well, over the past 5 years, I think the Brampton Innovation District has shown its success through partners like the Brampton Venture Zone. And over the next 5 years as well, we will be seeing a lot of economic growth, particularly when you look at the innovation and technology sector. You look at AI adoption and the incredible exponential growth, I would say, in that sector that's happening across the world right now. Brampton is well poised to take advantage of that. The mayor mentioned MDA previously, MDA having the largest space contract here in Canada, right here in the city of Brampton. We're also focusing our energies to see if that is another sector that we're exploring to hopefully see that growth spin off with a space cluster that's being formed around. Canada most recently hosted an event called the 2024 Moonshot, where tech leaders in the space industry were here in the city of Brampton at the Canada headquarters to talk about exactly that. So over the next 5 years, I'm hoping to see a lot more activity. And as part of this budget, we have that renewed commitment with partners like the Brampton Venture Zone to work together for the next 5 years to incubate innovative businesses and help them grow here in the city of Brampton. We have a question here from that came in online from Michael Arthur, who's a professor at Sheridan College. He asks, what are the budget plans for sustainable manufacturing and other related programs?
We could speak about partners and project. Sure. Thank you for the question. Our economic development team has just launched a new program called Partners in Project Green. And this is exciting because we are going to work directly with Brampton businesses that will work with our team, with the team at Partners in Project Green, to adopt sustainable methods of manufacturing and running their business. So we do have this program open right now in 2025, and we're piloting it, and we will be bringing a report to council towards the end of the year with the results. But if you're interested in working with us and learning more about the businesses that are participating, we'd be happy to speak to you about that.
Thank you, Denise, for that. I think just being sensitive of the time, I would like us to conclude the question and answer segment of today's call. Any further questions that you may have that are being captured here in the chat as well, staff will be reaching out to you and providing you with any information and answers. Mayor Brown, would you please deliver some concluding remarks?
Well, thank you, Councillor Toor, for chairing this discussion with businesses. I understand we had 200 businesses registered. That's great to have so many businesses wanting to have a conversation about the future of our city, about our budget document, how to make Brampton the best place for businesses to locate. I want to thank Councillor Basante and Santos, who are also part of this conversation today. And there's lots of reasons for optimism in Brampton, despite the challenges of tariffs and inflation and interest rates. I really believe our best days are ahead of us in this city. It's one of the reasons we're seeing really businesses locate here. They're showing with their wallets that this is a great place to invest, to grow. We have access to talent. We have access to transportation corridors. This is a city of opportunity. In terms of this year's budget, we got a AAA credit rating. It attests to the strong fiscal position that we're in. Having among the lowest tax increases in the GTA speaks to our collective desire to remain competitive. And we're making strategic investments for generations to come. When you look at the fact that all these construction projects are starting now, think of the spin-off jobs from this construction activity. You're never going to see as much construction right now happening in Brampton over the next few years that we've ever seen before. And that's just city tendered projects. Look at the provincial ones too. If you look at the hospital construction that's starting in March and April, of course, we made a huge contribution to that project through our local share. The construction activity happening in our city right now is extraordinary, and there'll be spin-off from that. So thank you for being part of the conversation today. We look forward to continuing to engage with our businesses. You are the economic engine of our city. You are our job creators. And if you think of something you didn't get a chance to raise today, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can send me an email directly at patrick.brown@brampton.ca. And if we didn't get a chance to talk today, I look forward to talking with you directly. All the best and enjoy the chilly Canadian weather.
Mayor Brown, before we let you go, I'll have one final question for you. For businesses that are interested in listening to what the city of Brampton is doing, can you please tell everybody when the State of the City will be?
Yeah, that's a Brampton Board of Trade event. It's February 4th, and we're looking forward to sharing our aspirations for the city at that annual event. The Board of Trade do a phenomenal job. Kudos to J. Paul Massey, Singh, and his team. If you're not part of the Board of Trade, you should join, be part of their network. They put on great events, and I look forward to sharing some good news with the city on February 4th.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Okay, good job, everyone.
All right. They're not.